Hey, welcome back. This is going to be about the NexStar, and I've been flying the NexStar for almost a little over a month now. And a couple of weeks ago, I decided to try Flaperons, and Flaperons work very well for this airplane. And so I decided to tack this extra video on at the end of my playlist for the NexStar to explain what Flaperons are, how they work, how they set them up, and what they look like on the airplane. So a flaperon is where the ailerons act as flaps. So basically you got the ailerons here, and when you lower flaps, you know, the flaps are neutral and they go down like that, okay? So the two ailerons act as flaps. They just go down like that. Now the ailerons still work even in the down position. They just, you know, go up and down from the down position, and you'll see that in a few minutes. So first thing I'm going to show you is what you have to do in the radio to set it up. There's 3 or 4 settings you got to make, and then after that I'll show you the wing mounted on the airplane and show you what it looks like when you lower the flaps. And there'll be 2 flaps. Well, there'll be flaps up, takeoff flaps and landing flaps, and I'll explain all that in a minute. Basically the takeoff flaps are about half, maybe a little less than half, and landing flaps are when the ailerons are all the way down. So you'll get to see that in a minute. Be right back to show you what the settings are in the DX7 radio. Okay, you're looking at the NexStar main screen here, and it's NexStar number 2 because it's the second one I built. I have 2 NexStars here, and I didn't film the first one because I wasn't sure what it was like. After flying it, I like it, so I decided to buy one and build a second one. Okay, so the first thing to do when you want to set up Flaperons is go into the system setup. So I'm on the function list by pressing the button once, scroll almost all the way to the bottom, go into system setup and say yes. And so the first thing you have to change is aircraft type. It used to say dual ailerons, but now it says Flaperons. So if you come down here, it used to say dual ailerons. Remember, we had 2 aileron servos in the wing. Now, if you just click one more, it says Flaperons, and that's the only change you have to make there. Okay, so that's pretty simple. And when you do that, if you scroll back up to the main screen and hit main screen, or hit the back button, either way, get back to the main screen, and then come down, you'll see a new menu item called Flap System. Okay. Now that flap system I've already set up. I've been flying with it for several weeks. Works very well. So position 0 is the up position. So that's at 0. Okay. Position 1 is what I call the takeoff flaps, and that's -40. And the position 2 of the 3-position switch is set at -70. The switch is the D switch. Okay, so let me show you where the D switch is. The D switch is right here. It's got a nice big long switch on it. Much easier to hit when you want to put the flaps up and down than these shorter ones. And that's why I recommend it, and I think Spectrum does as well. So use the D switch. And then there's a speed, and that's how fast they go down. 4 seconds is quite a long time, and but it allows the flaps to lower gently, and it doesn't pitch up at all, and it works great. So that's the flap system. And if you when I flip the switch, listen.
Takeoff flaps.
So it says takeoff flaps, and so that means you can see right here that it's on position 1. And if I flip it one more time, landing flaps is position 2.
Flaps up.
And flaps up. So to get it to talk, you go down to the custom voice setup, and the custom voice setup, I set up one for normal throttle cut, and we also had one for bank 0, bank 1, which is for the differential. I always leave differential on. So I set up another one for flaps up, and so that looks like this. So if switch D moves, position 0 says flaps up, position 1 says takeoff flaps, and position 2 says landing flaps. So this is the custom voice. Sorry about that. So flaps up, takeoff flaps, landing flaps is the custom voice. And so if I go back, that's all there is to it. Now, let me say one more thing about the flap system here. You arrive at these, you arrive at the 0 because 0 is the up position. You arrive at the 70% by making sure when the flaps go down they don't bind or go too far down, and that's a trial and error method. If you're using the same servos and the same control throws and all that, it'll be in that range. But you have to experiment to see what down is, and then you can decide how far you want for the half flaps, and it's about half. The half flaps are good for takeoff if you try to do a very short takeoff. I normally don't use them for takeoff. I only use the full flaps for landing, and I'll also use the full flaps for landing sometimes on downwind and lower the flaps on downwind, or I'll land it just as I roll out on final and know I've got the landing made, and it just prevents the airplane from floating too far down the runway. And I also I keep my finger on the switch while I'm landing if I'm doing a touch and go, so when I touch down I can flip the switch back to takeoff, and they go up quickly enough, and you can do a touch and go. You can do a touch and go with the flaps down too. If you've got a nice engine on it, like I have, there's plenty of power on the OS engine I'm using to do a touch and go with flaps full down. So that's it. Now next I'll show you what the wing looks like on the airplane when I flip it. Be back in a minute. Okay, I got the NexStar sitting here on the bench. I got the radio is on, the airplane is on. The airplane bolt isn't in. That's okay. It's not going anywhere. Okay. I can hear some buzzing in the background, and usually the buzzing goes away if you just wiggle the all the servos a little bit. Okay. Alright, so Flaperons. So I'm going to flip the switch once, and you can watch both flaps go down.
Takeoff flaps.
Okay, that's takeoff flaps.
Landing flaps.
Landing flaps. Okay, let me zoom in so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so that's landing flaps.
Takeoff flaps.
Takeoff flaps.
Flaps up.
Flaps up. Okay.
Landing flaps.
And because the entire length of the aileron is acting as a flap, it's very effective.
2 volts. Takeoff flaps. Flaps up.
Okay, so that's it. As I said, if you got a good powerful engine like I've got on it, if I remember correctly, it's the OS 55, I think. No, maybe only the OS 46, I forget. I'm going to check, hold on. Okay, yes, the engine is the OS 46. The reason I was confused is I'm in the process of building another airplane, which you'll see a bunch of videos in another week or so, which is the Avistar, cousin to the NexStar. This is from Hobbico. The Avistar is from Great Plains, both from Tower Hobbies. And the Avistar is actually, I think, a little bit better airplane than the NexStar, but that's subjective opinion. But I put an OS 55 engine in that, and it flies very well with it. But this 46 is very powerful for this airplane, works very well, and I have no problem doing takeoffs and landings with flaps all the way down. I want to show you one more thing. So the flaps are all the way down, and watch how they work when you move the ailerons. Okay, so you can see that the right aileron over here is going all the way up, and that one's moving very little. Remember, we still have differential, which is effective, and so when I go this way, you know, that doesn't move much, that moves all the way up, and so with the flaps down, that will turn the airplane left or right and do it very well. So you don't have to change any of your technique for landing. If you're on final and you got to tweak the ailerons a little bit, keep straight, go right ahead, it's going to work just fine. So it just looks funny, but it works very well. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for my Avastar videos.